meet you.
Baby, we found love, baby.
Magic, madness,
Baby, I'm thinking about
you. When I drink up all my money, why not to break this lonely? Let's begin, I trust no word.
I know,
No happy endings, breaking me down, down, down. If you could take my pulse, feel my.
Hello and welcome back. One more week to Educalar. Today we bring you one of the most claimed and liked podcasts for you all. Here you have your three favorite girls with their discussions about the program. As always, hope you like it as much as we do. Thank you.
How long without seeing you?
Yes, since the last TV show we didn't have the opportunity to see us.
Yes, I have been very busy.
What do you think about the last TV program?
Wow, it was amazing.
Yeah, I find it really interesting.
Yes, the same for me. Topics were quite interesting.
Yes, I really liked the first topic,
Which one do you refer?
the one that tells about emotional intelligence.
Oh yes, it got my attention too much.
Yes, the same for me. I just was with the eyes and ears opened and I couldn't stop watching it.
I think you are staring.
I feel like Lydia.
It surprised a lot how the emotions and so on can affect our way of thinking.
Yes, emotional intelligence is, as the word says, a mixture of emotion and intelligence.
Yeah, intelligence is typically used by psychologists to determine the degree of functioning of the cognitive sphere.
But also we need to have into account what is the emotion.
Well, emotions belong to the second division of the mind.
Yeah, they are also called affective sphere of mental functioning.
This sphere is quite interesting
Why?
because it contemplates emotion in themselves, states of humor, and our feelings.
You have just forget some states of humor.
Which ones?
For example, the fatigue and energy.
Yes, you are right.
We need to have also into account the motivation, as it is the third sphere.
Yes, of course, motivation is quite important.
Yes, it refers to the biological impulse or intentional behaviors in search of goals.
Yeah, motivation is included in emotional intelligence, which should be considered a secondary aspect.
Yeah, for sure, but not everything that connects cognition with emotion is emotional intelligence.
Do you know what is cognition and effect?
I will describe it as the area of research that is dedicated to the mutual interaction between feeling and thought, doesn't it?
All right, you have explained it perfectly.
We can say that emotion changes thinking from many points of view, but it wouldn't necessarily make a person more brave.
Yeah, emotions indicates that states of human usually predispose people's thoughts and people with good humor.
Yes, it is said that people with good humor are healthier than others.
Yes, and people with bad mood tend to think that they are sicker or that the economy is getting worse.
Did you know that this effect is called congruent judgment of humor?
No, I didn't know it.
We can distinguish on the different branches of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, but those branches is about the model of Meyer and Salovey, don't they?
Yes, of course.
They are the perception of, and the expression of emotions, the ability to generate, use, and feel emotions.
But they are not the ones.
Yes, there is humor branches.
Which ones?
The understanding of emotions and the regulation of emotions.
That's right. I lost my man.
Another topic that I have just find important and interesting is the emotional intelligence related by the drug consumption.
We could highlight that the drugs are a multidimensional phenomenon in which emotional intelligence plays a significant role.
Yes, people with a lack of emotional skills may resort to drug use as an external form of self-regulation to diminish, hide, or ignore their negative emotional states or to generate more pleasant emotional states.
Wow, that is amazing.
And that is not all. There was another study which evaluated the protective nature of emotional intelligence on the risk of smoking in adolescents.
And what was the result of that study?
Well, the results indicated that emotional intelligence was a protective factor of smoking risk in adolescents related to a better perception of negative social consequences.
Oh my god, how things work. It has shocked me.
Yeah, it is very surprising how things work, and we are not conscious about that until these types of study arise to give information and maybe solutions.
How about psychoevolutional, psychosocial, and differential aspects of emotional intelligence?
Well, I think that in the physical evolutive aspect, children are born with the cognitive skills, and along their growing and maturing, they become perfect and become experts.
Yes, in the psychosocial aspect, the fundamental factors that must be focused on are roles of the family and its environment.
And we cannot forget about the differential aspects, in which we focus on gender differences and the studies conducted.
All these concepts that we all have just mentioned can be analyzed in emotional intelligence of Mayer and Salovey.
Yeah, emotional perception becomes evident from the birth of people.
And the ability to read facial expressions is very important, which is why it is an essential component of emotional intelligence.
We can say that in psychoevolutive aspects, children are able to discriminate different facial expressions, imitate them, and envision their emotional meaning.
Yeah, with the passage of time, they will be looking at other secondary expressions and acquiring different feelings next to it, such as same.
Also, in psychosocial aspect, we can find social function in expressions.
Here, the flexibility of many facial and body expressions allows the communication of indirect, cautious, or double meaning messages.
It is important to know that the relationship between the one who expresses and the one who perceives an expression has important consequences in the accuracy of both due to the implicit cultural factors.
Exactly. And in the last one,
The differential aspects?
yes, that one. When we perceive and express emotion through any of the channels, there are individual, evolutionary, gender, and cultural differences.
In this part of the TV show, there was something that caught my attention for a while.
And what is that?
That at 3 years of age, women show more ability to perceive expressions of emotions than men.
Whoa, I didn't know it.
Yeah, but also we can find more gender differences.
Yes, such as greater empathy on the part of this, greater expressivity, more practice, greater tendency to adapt to others, and greater breadth to use emotional information.
Oh, yes, the key in this hypothesis is that it is more valuable for subordinates to understand the emotion of those who are subordinated than the opposite.
But some authors have another idea.
Who?
According to Blank, Rosenholz, Snodgrass, De Pablo, and Zuckerman, both sexes in adolescents seem to have the same level of inaccuracy to capture emotional information, but women with development are improving the ability to recognize emotions.
Mufson and Noki discovered that men recognize facial expression with less accuracy than women, and that is different decreased when they were previously informed that this task mediates their social competence.
So, after reading all this, we can say that some studies suggest that the greater nonverbal sensitivity of women are related to the expression of the face may come from a greater motivation.
Yeah, but also women may have more automated skills than men. However, in a controlled process situation, the male may be sufficiently motivated to perform well.
And men need a greater mental effort to become as empathic as women, in the same way that with a good predisposition they can strive more in tasks of execution.
We could say that these three aspects can be related with the facilitation in cognitive activity.
Yeah, emotions can influence cognitive functioning, and in this second branch highlights the ability to generate, use, and feel emotion as necessary to communicate feelings, or use them in order cognitive processes, or use cognitive processes to generate feelings.
I would like to tell one by one.
What do you mean?
Well, I think that in the TV show they see, for example, psychoevolutive aspects of emotional facilitation in cognitive activity, and then with the following one, the psychosocial etc.
Oh yes, I know what you mean.
In psychoevolutive aspects of emotional facilitation, in cognitive activity, emotions help organize the sensory experience of babies, and as they grow and explore their surroundings, they help them understand how physical or mathematical relationship looks like.
Yeah, in psychosocial aspects of emotional facilitation, some authors have suggested that emotions play a different role in the social interaction of men and women to the point that they form or occupy different emotional roles.
And according to this idea, emotions would facilitate differently in men and women to operate mentally in the social interactions of each gender.
In the differential aspect of emotional facilitation enters the relationship between gender and emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it is understood as a complex cognitive process of emotional information.
Here, Maestre, Palmero, and Will, women have better quality of emotional information because they have more resources than men. However, they are more limited by the data than men.
Follow this theme, it appears the psychoevolutive, psychosocial, and differential aspects of the understanding of emotions.
This is included in a broader level of emotional awareness, which involves the conceptual organization of emotion and which places emotional consciousness in a domain of widely constructed intelligence.
Yeah, and do you remember Lane and Schwartz?
No so much.
Yeah, of course. They propose 5 levels of emotional awareness scale in complexity.
Yes, these levels are awareness of sensation, action trends, basic emotion, mixture of emotion, and finally mixtures of emotional experience mixes.
What do you mean with the mixture of emotional experience mixes?
It is about the ability to appreciate the complexity of emotional experiences in oneself and in others. Do you understand now?
Yeah, now yes.
Great.
Following this, what comes?
Maybe psychoevolutive, psychosocial, and differential aspects of the regulation of emotions?
And also how to regulate those emotions, doesn't it?
Yeah, those two things.
Here, Mayer, Salovey, and Caruso say that the regulation of emotions must begin with the perception of these.
Here we could say that only if one has a good emotional perception can change the mood and understand the emotional processes.
And then, once the emotions are understood, we will obtain the necessary information to relate them and deal with the feelings.
Very good.
And also, an emotional intelligence individual must also handle unstable mood states, which requires an considerable understanding of mood swings.
To finalize with this topic, I would like to remember how does it work because I lost my mind.
Okay, Lydia and I are going to explain this to you, don't worry.
These are complex, confusing, and chaotic, and are governed by their own system of punishment and rewards, but also a good emotional regulation must follow some flexible lines.
The regulation of emotions also implies that a person understands how these progress in intra and interpersonal context.
Yeah, of course, that is a very important part, but also the regulation of emotions requires time, training, evaluation of these strategies carried out, test, and emotional self-efficacy.
Have you really understand it?
Well, more or less.
You did. Maybe if you give her an example, it's easy for her to understand it.
Okay, for example, regulating emotions is like a tap, where these are channeled like a torrent of water. Thus, emotional suppressions, such as anger, will involve completely closing the tap, with the risk of accumulating more water volume that can be retained. But opening completely means letting more water flow than an inexperienced person can know how to control.
Now?
Yes, thank you, ladies.
Do you know other important things about emotional intelligence?
Maybe emotional intelligence and education?
Yeah, and the development of socio-emotional competence.
Yes, that is.
An important function of education is to promote the incorporation of a person into society, making it part of society and keeping society, and to be part of any society in its necessary to obtain certain knowledge and emotional competencies.
Yeah, and the development of emotional intelligence is a requirement to ensure an adequate emotional adjustment of young people.
Today, the desire to improve the level of students have focused on expanding the attention of their personality and acting on their intellectual abilities, determine their problems in learning, that is, have focused on addressing the cognitive aspects.
The emotional intelligence model of Mayer and Salovey facilitates studying the role of emotional skills related to training and social adaptation.
For this reason, there are some empirical evidence.
For example, Sharp observed the relationship between emotional deficit, adaptation, and school failure. He said that these two factors were related as the deficit affects to the concentration, causes worries and emotional transients.
Also, likewise, Andrzejowicz said that anger or unhappiness increase the school failure.
And finally, Aluja and Blatz say that the deficit of social adaptation causes problems in academic success. If a student knew how to control and regulate their emotion, it will be much easier to control negative emotion in learning contexts.
Then they wanted to focus on emotional intelligence but related with academic performance.
Here, Lam and Kirby studied the impact of emotional intelligence on the individual's performance of university students.
We need to have into account the indexes. The emotional intelligence indexes were obtained through a questionnaire called MEIS. These questionnaires were based on the study of Mayer and Salovey.
Sorry. And the most amazing thing is that students with higher emotional intelligence obtain the best grades because they were able to regulate their own emotions.
Yeah, it also amazed me a lot, just because there are a lot of psychologists that say the same.
Yeah, that is true. Maestre and Guid and Hildane found that emotional intelligence with the MDCETI provide more capacity of academic performance than emotional intelligence assessed with a self-report measure.
And John and Elias and Mayudim and Uli, they studied the relationship between emotional intelligence and the academic development of Malaysian students. Again, the students with the most emotional intelligence obtain the best results.
Yes, as we can see, socio-emotional skills are related to academic performance. Also, the social and emotional adaptation of childs and effective bonds with adults can contribute to increase these emotions for learning.
Another fact very important is how the adult should be educated to be able to educate the young.
This could be named as the role of imitation.
Here, Baget, Azer, Wolf, Katalukak, and Fay said that the initiative for social emotional learning programs in schools should include training in the skills of teachers and school staff. So, to create an environment in which social emotional learning will be integrated into the personal development of students.
Yes, the role of the modeler and modulator gives learning by imitation a fundamental value in the development of emotional intelligence due to the fact that teachers act as adequate or inadequate models of emotional self-management.
Also, Feiner and Matthews and Robert and McCann state that the family environment is a fundamental element in the process of socialization of emotions during the growth process.
They explain two key factors: the education that parents give their children about emotion and an indirect learning of the children through the observation and modeling of emotional responses in their parents.
So, after this, in the same way that you are learned through imitation, you can also learn inadequate ways of handling emotion. So, with the incorporation of Vicar conditioning in educational programs, there are three effects.
Yeah, one of them is the modeling, that is the learning of new answers.
The second one is inhibition or disinhibition of previously learning behaviors that are part of the subject's behavioral repertoire. And this says that the observation of models can strengthen or weaken the inhibitory responses.
And finally, social facilitation or provocation of existing responses in your repertoire of behavior. That is, the observation of models sometimes provokes in the observer emulation responses previously learned.
Do you know that people want to introduce emotional intelligence in school?
Yeah, but if we introduce emotional intelligence in school, we must know that the resources available in school and the time are scarce. So, Lopes and Salovey propose two things.
Adjust to the needs of a person or a group and the problems they present at the school, in homes or in the streets.
And focus on skills with probabilities of generalization to other domains and that are important to develop other skills.
Which one do you think is better?
The second option is easier. Working with group techniques allows us to approach the components of Meyer and Salovey emotional intelligence skills model and include the training of general skills aimed at reducing anxiety, cognitive restoration, and solving the problems presented by group members.
And do you know about Cassell?
I don't have any clue.
Well, I have listened of it, but I am not sure what it's about.
Okay, so I'm going to explain you. Cassell is an organization founded by Ian Rockefeller Brundtland, Daniel Wolven, and Timmy Silver, with the mission of achieving the establishment of social and emotional learning as an essential part of education, from preschool to university.
Is the one that thinks that the best learning is when there is an establishment of favorable and challenging relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Cassell has identified 5 types of socio-emotional competencies that are considered basic in any program that considers the development of emotional intelligence.
I think that they are self-knowledge, social knowledge, self-management, making responsible decisions, and relationship skills.
Yeah, that is.
And what do you think about the topic of the social psychology of communication?
They talk about the history of communication, and they said that the word of communication had meant to participate and to share.
Later, it was related with the term of transmission and finally also gave name to the connections between 2 points in the field of transport.
Yes. And later on the program, they talk about the factors of the communicative process that are the reciprocity, that means that the information must be multidirectional, and the meaning of the message.
Oh, yes, that means that the behaviors modifies the interviewing, and also the last factor is the interpersonal relationship, which let us see beyond the objective content.
All of that is true, but we don't have to forget that communication is about more than transmitting information.
We also have to mention that the feedback is the process that the sender uses to make sure that the message has been well transmitted to the receiver.
Something, some, Something that caught my attention was the thing that they talk about sociology. It wasn't expected to me.
Yeah, me neither, but they say that due to the rise of mass media, sociology was focused on the study of communication now more.
Also, they mention the social psychology, which studies the way in which the individual is introduced to society, and the communication has also been important in the study of the groups.
Yeah, and thanks to this, we have been able to understand its structure, how they work, and the relationship processes according to the roles.
Also, this branch of psychology studies the situations and environmental context, the personality variables, and the interpreting factors of the message. Through this study, we will be able to know how communication processes occur.
And several models have been proposed in social psychology for the study of communication, like the one of, what was the name?
Holmes?
Yes, that one.
That's the one about the perceptions that have the participants of the process of personalities of others during the process's communication.
From there, the receiver and the sender are assigned 3 images. Do you know which ones are they or not?
I can't remember. Can you explain it to me?
Well, the first one is the real one of himself. The ideal image that you have of it is the second one. And the ideal image that the other has of him is the last one.
Well, yes. And what about what they say of the anthropology?
I don't remember that part. Maybe I was distracted or something.
Well, don't worry, I remember it. That's the part where they say that the studies of anthropology in education were based only in linguistic aspects, but after the 50s, They gave more importance to the communication rather than the language.
Exactly. That's what I was talking about. Also, they said that the communications is important because without it, according to the science, culture, traditions, values, would not exist.
So, basically, human exist thanks to communication. Am I right?
I think I think so, no?
Yeah, it's right, but to be more accurate, the society is the one who wouldn't exist without it. But as you know, it's almost the same thing, so yeah, you're right.
And there is any kind of explanation to this theory?
Mm, Actually, it's not an explanation, but it's an actual fact. And it's that people develop the need to communicate with others because from birth we surround ourselves with society.
Also, the basic dilemma by which communication is explained in humans has always been found in the innate and accurate need.
Oh, yes, I remember that part. The innate need because the human has within him an exploratory impulse, and it is acquired by relying on experimental studies that try to explain how it is acquired.
We also have to talk about the aspects of the communicative act. Do you girls know them?
Of course, we have the communicator, the speaker, and the recipient. And do you know what is the last one?
The receiver.
Yes, that one.
So the communicator is the initiator of the communicative process, producing a message that aims to reach its destination. A distinction is made between source and speaker to refer to the primary origin of the intention to communicate, and to the person in charge of directly transmitting the elaborated message.
Also, the concept of receiver is associated with the person receiving the message, while the concept of recipient is the last destination to which is addressed. Both concepts are usually included under the term perceptor.
We also have the message, everything that is transmitted through a channel in the communicative act. It is the combination of things previously agreed by the community.
The channel, the language code, and the coding and decoding are also very important.
Well, yes, of course they are, but we have to remember the information and the context too, because there are a lot of factors that can make these two processes different.
Exactly. And finally, the metacommunication, the noise, and the feedback, and the communicative behaviors.
What a review we did here. But talking about the communications, the communicative behavior varies according to some circumstances.
Mm, yeah, for example, the distance is one of them, and it refers to the physical space that separates the interlocutors. Depending on this variable, it can be near or far.
And we can talk also about different kinds of distance, according to the behaviors and receptor capacities of the sensory system used.
Well, the comfortable reach, which is the distance, is carried out with low psychological cost. There is no effort for transmission, reception, and the behaviors are spontaneous. Another one is the limited scope, that is when the communication is altered and is of doubtful interpretation due to the presence of noise.
Another ones are the perception of inaccessibility when the distance is such that the effort to communicate is almost useless. Other is far when the distance is such that the use of a technological channel is necessary.
And finally, but not least, the unlimited distance. The distance is so high that the channel facilitates a contact between communicators.
Other circumstances are the speaker and receivers. That includes the primary communication, which is between two people or in a small group, and the quasi-primary communication, which is in small groups.
The last one is the secondary communication, right? That is without direct contact between the elements that execute it, in large groups or mass communication processes.
And other circumstances are the process generated to communicate, the character of communication, and the function that performs.
They also talk about the socialization function, and they say that the family group constitutes the most influential nucleus of the social groups in which man develop as a social being.
That's because the communication in the beginning is carried out mainly in the family.
What do you think about it, Lydia?
The screams, smiles, or cries are forms of manifestation that facilitate in the infant the acquisition of guidelines of behavior based on demands of the environment. As these demands change, so the forms of communication evolve.
And in the same way, the values that develop in the child's personality are acquired from the continuous communicative interactions developed by the parent figures with their children, of course.
The types of communication received by the child in the family or group interaction make the child acquire a certain social status.
Now, about talking about the development of the kids, we have to remember the educational function because education is a communication process far excellent and the most complex.
The communicative interaction that is established in educational development not only has the objective of transmitting the cultural values of a society.
It also shapes the attitudes of the individual, the intellectual processes, and everything that is needed to develop the life in the community to what the subject belongs.
Well, mass media constantly act as socializing agents, and the schools uses more and more sophisticated communication means to get all the material needed by the student at every age and for every situation.
Also, the nonverbal communication is very important. The body and its movements constitute the most important part of it.
The motor behavior has global expressivity, so in the course of a communication, you can see gestures with the hands, legs, and the head that are useful to the speaker and the listener to control the communicative speech in multiple ways.
I completely agree with the importance of the nonverbal communication, but we have to remember that the use of verbal language is what distinguishes us as rational beings and is what makes the difference with the rest of the living beings like the animals, as you know. And it is the most usual form used for communicative interactions.
Yeah, and language has two fundamental consequences in social relationship of people. Influences perception and belief of social collective.
Oh, it just came to my mind what they say about the language being used to regulate one's own behavior or that of the others.
Yeah, and I think that we can find two forms of verbal expressions of behavioral control, the primitive and the derived one. That there are also some functions of language as a communication system.
Oh, yes, there were the referential, the motive, the connotative, the aesthetic, the practical, and the metalinguistic one.
And do you remember the connotative and the notative factors? I always get confused with the two.
Yeah, it happens to me, but I think I remember. Okay, so the denotative language is the meaning that is socially agreed, officially accepted, and recognized by official bodies. And the connotative meaning, sometimes it is so strong that it usually ends up annulling the denotative meaning.
And how can we improve our communication?
Well, communication is a process of mutual influence, so the desire to influence others must be accompanied by a predisposition to be influenced.
Yeah, and the compression of verbal messages is particularly complicated, but on a non-verbal level, the children in class are continuously sending messages, like with their facial expressions, with their movements, etc.
Yeah, And what surprised me is that the nonverbal communication, depending what you want to say, you associate different movements.
Oh yes, there were three. The first one is the emphasis movements used to accentuate what we express and what we believe that is important, and the other ones.
The clarification or illustration movements, I think they were.
Yes, it is the second one. And what was it about?
Mm, it indicates specific aspects of the message or specific parts of the communication.
Yeah, and the last one, but not least, is the mind movements that are broader than the illustrative ones. Sometimes they involve moving the whole body.
Yes, that ones are used to indicate behaviors that another person wishes to perform or to define a specific situation of difficult or long verbal description.
What do you think about the communication of feelings?
Well, in my personal opinion, one of the first tasks that should worry the good communication is to know and to accept the feelings.
Totally. And once the feelings are recognized and accepted, the next step will be to know how to express them.
Yeah. Okay. So, according to the program, there are 4 procedures that can be followed to this situation.
Oh, yes, I remember them. There are the indirect expression, the direct expression, the metaphorical, and the physical behavior expression. Sorry.
Well, to sum up, if we want to improve our communication, we have to keep in mind some aspects. There are the planning communication objectives, the control of communication variables, and the others, I can't remember the name.
I think that they were the construction of the message, the how to receive messages, and the feedback. Yeah, the feedback.
What forms this concept?
Well, the first one talks about the sense of the communication, and to achieve these objectives, it must be perfectly delimited and the speaker must be aware of them.
In the second one, we have to keep in mind 4 elements that are the control of the distance, the control of the voice and the body, the control of the words we use, and finally the control of the situation.
I know that for the third there are two main aspects, but I don't remember them.
Well, they are the structuring and the socialization.
Oh, right. How could I forget them?
Don't worry.
And what about the fourth one?
Okay, here we have to adapt an attitude of tranquility and attention to show that we are actually listening to the person with a critical attitude and without interrupting, of course.
I'm sure that the both of you know about the feedback, but I'm going to refresh our mind just in case.
Okay, go with it.
Well, so the feedback, as you know, it has the main function of letting our interlocutor know our positive disposition in the communication, of sending him information about the content of what he is telling us.
And we have several ways to perform the feedback. Explicitly assessing the communication, repeating part of the last thing he or she did, or making a summary of synthesis and the last arguments.
Exactly, and it is convenient to show that you want feedback, either by manifesting openly or by asking questions that oblige the interlocutor to respond.
Also, other ways of inducing answers are using silences or brief pauses during communication.
Wow,
Yes.
amazing.
You are right.
Girls, another topic that caught my attention was interpersonal attractions. Do you know what is it?
I don't know, I don't remember really well.
I think that it is the desire to approach another person. The interpersonal attraction encompasses the ability to love, like, dislike, and hate, and the desire for relationships, whether friendships or romances. It is right?
I think that you're right. I'm remembering but a bit. So, do you know why people affiliate?
There are so many reasons such as the need for approval, support, friendship, and information, reducing anxiety and uncertainty, evaluate our actions, feelings, and abilities of or self-protection and self-engagement.
Another reasons that you have forget are affiliation and the social comparison theory. Also, it is used not only to judge and improve ourselves, but also to provide information about our emotions and even to choose our friends.
Exactly. We prefer to compare ourselves with similar others. Girls, do you have water or something because I'm dying here?
Yes, have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, where we was? I get
I
lost
think
my
we were
mind.
talking about the program.
Oh, yes. Okay. In the program, they talk about a really interesting theory called social exchange theory, which proposes that we seek out and maintain those relationships in which the reward exceeds the cost. Also, it says that exchange good can be either material or non-material.
Um, do you know what increases linking?
Mm, I'm not sure, but I think that one fact that affects linking is proximity because they talk about some author.
Eon Festinger?
Yeah, I think so because they say that he came to the conclusion that people were more likely to choose as friends those living in the same building and even on the same floor.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, people who live close by are accessible, so that interacting with them requires little effort, and the rewards of doing so have little cost.
Yes, proximity became a more nuanced psychological concept during the 20th century. It is because the potentially negative impact of having a long distance lover that is listened by a phone call, email, Facebook, you know.
Yeah.
Well, not only talking about lovers, but what will we do now without the social media, emails, and all of that? I can imagine it. Do you?
No.
Well, another fact that affects linking is familiarity. For example, when something familiar seems different, people usually feel uncomfortable.
However, there is another point to this. That is, the more we know someone, the more we uncover things that make that person dissimilar from ourselves, leading to dislike.
Wow.
Oh. The third fact is similarity. In that, Bean and Color said that attitudes that were markedly similar were an important ingredient in maintaining relationships.
Wow. Okay.
And what was the law of attraction?
I think that it established that attraction towards a person bears a linear relationship to the actual proportion of similar attitudes shared with that person. More or
Wow.
less.
They also said that the more other people agree, the more they act as reinforcements for you, and the more you like them, and as well. Differences in attitudes and interests can lead to avoidance and dislike.
Other fact that affect linking is social matching, in which people are paired up on the basis of having compatible attitudes, but also on sharing demographic characteristics.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't remember that part of the show. Maybe I was distracted or somewhat. But about that, I read about a study that was done to see what effect the types of names had on attraction, and they found out that people were more likely to marry someone with the same surname as them. Unbelievable.
For example, my grandfather and my grandmother are called with the same surname.
Smith, no?
No, my grandmother has a surname Soria, and my grandfather also has Soria. So they are.
Sorry.
Yes.
So they fall in love.
Yeah. But another study to see what effect the types of names had on attraction revealed that people were more likely to marry someone with the same surname as them.
Yes. And a study of heterosexual dating preferences among four ethnic groups in the United States showed that participants generally prefer partners from their own ethnic group.
Wow, that's really interesting. I would like to read more about this. It's strange. Well, no, not strange. What do you think of it?
Yes, it is strange.
So, girls, the last fact that affects linking is personal characteristic that is about having similar interests, leisure activities, attitudes, values, and social skills that are determinants of attraction.
And what about self-disclosure?
It is about the sharing of intimate information and feelings with another person, and is a very important determinant of long-term intimacy in a relationship because people tend to reveal more to people that they like and trust.
Exactly. People tend to prefer people who reveal more about their feelings and thoughts because this is important both in developing relationships and maintaining them.
On the other hand, in cultural stereotypes, some cultures differ on what they regard as being physically attractive. For example, in Africa, having big thighs and being large is pretty.
Oh, and girls, about attraction and rewards, I would like to say that people who reward us dearly become associated with pleasure, and we learn to like them. And on the other hand, people who punish us dearly become associated with pain, and we dislike them.
Wow. Well, yes, a relationship is an ongoing everyday activity. We seek to obtain, preserve, or exchange things of value with other human beings. Also, some exchanges are brief and maybe shallow, while others are ongoing and long term and maybe extremely complex and important.
How complex are humans?
Yes, I agree. We are complex.
And difficult. But people are happiest in relationship when they believe that they give and take is approximately equal.
I agree with you. The equity theory was developed in the context of workplace motivation and was popularized in social psychology by Stacey Adams. It covers two main situations that are the mutual exchange of resources, as in marriage, and the exchange that is limited resources that must be distributed.
I think that there was another fact that impressed me, and I think it was called attachment. Yeah,
Sí, yes, attachment.
It could be.
yeah, I think so. I remember that they say that it's the need to affiliate yours to form connections and make contact with other people.
Yeah. Obviously, there are times when we wish to be alone, to enjoy our own company. However, the effects of too much social isolation can be dire indeed.
Yes, sometimes I need to be alone.
I understand you.
Do you know that Stanley Stature described a connection between being isolated and feeling anxious?
Oh yes, I know her. And furthermore, being alone can lead people to want to be with others, even with strangers.
And Scatcher surmises that having company serves to reduce anxiety. Didn't do you know it?
No. But you have forgotten that survival depends on physical needs, but also on a quite independent need for care and intimate interaction.
You're completely right. And now that I remember, do you remember that part of the program when they talk about the experiment of this man going to an island all on his own, and he become crazy because he was alone? Do you remember it?
No.
The one.
I remember the experiment about children, but know how it works. Do you know it, Lydia?
Yeah, The psychoanalyst Renee Speed reported on babies who had been in an overcrowded institution for 2 years, left by mom who were unable to look for them. The babies were fed but rarely handled, and were mostly confined to their cost.
Oh, how sad sounds that. What happened with them?
Compared with other institutionalized children who had been given adequate care, they were less mentally and socially advanced, and their mortality rate was extremely high.
Oh,
How sad. Well, Harlow's investigation was extended to babies that were totally isolated from contact with any living being for up to 12 months, I think. Such long periods of solitary confinement had drastic consequences.
do you know why are some people attractive?
Mm, I don't remember that part of the program, sorry.
They say that attraction is a fundamental part for friendship. To begin, thought many first meetings are by chance. The first cue in evaluating others is how they look. If you are attractive, people judge you more positively.
Wow. What are the three attachment styles?
Well, the first one is secure, which is trust in others, not worried about being abandoned. Believe that one is worthy and like it. Find it easy to be close to others. Comfortable being dependent on others and vice versa.
The second one is avoidant, which is the suppression of attachment needs, past attempts to be intimate, having reviews, uncomfortable when close to others, find it difficult to trust others or depend on them, and feel nervous when anyone gets close.
And the last one, the third one, is anxious, which concerns that others will not reciprocate one's desire for intimacy. Feel that a close partner doesn't really offer love or may leave. Want to merge with someone and oof, yeah, and that can scare people away. I get my loss.
Thanks again for explaining to me. Now it makes so sense.
Don't worry.
Another very interesting question is why are some people attractive?
Well, I think that we feel attached to someone is because we are charmed, we want to spend time with that person, or because we want to know about him or her.
Yeah, I think that attraction is fundamental for friendship to begin. So many first meetings are by chance.
Well, I think that the first cue in evaluating others is how they look. If you are attractive, people will judge with more positively.
I have said it before, girls. Don't listen to me? What about evolution and attraction?
Evolution theories has been applied to help understand a number of fields on social psychology, but also it has helped us to understand things such our strategies for choosing a long-term partner.
But there are different opinions about the application of such theories to social psychology.
Yes, that is right. Judith, what about Judith Langlois?
Well, she did a meta-analysis which is a statistical procedure.
Yeah, to combine data.
Yeah, true. I'm sorry, I lost it. It
But-
combined data from different researches to measure the overall reliability of a specific effect.
Yeah, that is true, but also she included research on physical appeal that use evolutionary concepts like inclusive fitness, reproductive and success, and so on.
Also, there are different ways of perceiving beauty that depend on the culture and in the environment.
For example, in some foreign cultures, being thin is a signal of illness, but in Western cultures, it's the other way around.
Wow, I didn't know it.
No?
It is also said that beauty is only a skin deep, but those are the assumptions that physical beauty is ultimately important in real-life decisions, implying that social factors must play some part in how relationships are formed.
Well, as well as beauty, because okay, beauty is important, but it's not essential. There are other characteristics of attraction that may have an evolutionary basis and be more important.
For example, Fletcher and his colleagues studied the ideas looked for college students in a partner. They found three ideal partner dimensions that guided the preferences of both men and women.
Yeah, they were the warmth, trustworthiness, the vitality, attractiveness, and the status resources.
Okay, so we could say as a conclusion that the physicality of the human is a major cue to initial attraction, and that there is an evolutionary and universal basis for some of these.
Yeah, I think so that it could be a very good conclusion of this interesting topic.
Changing the topic, what do you know about stereotypes?
I don't know much, but I think that our beliefs about social groups in terms of the traits or characteristics that they are believed to share.
And stereotypes are cognitive frameworks that include the processing of social information.
Do you know why stereotype exists? I think that in the program they say that we as an individual are cognitive misers. It means that we rely on quicker, heuristic-driven processing and use our preconceived beliefs to make behavioral choices, but I can't remember more. Do you?
No.
They also said that we place each person that we see or meet into one group or another, only paying attention to the information consistent with our stereotypes. Then we treat those persons like we treat the rest of members of that group.
Yeah. Furthermore, we tend to think that stereotypes change when the group's members change, or when we change our relationship with members of that group.
It just came to my mind. Stereotypes can also serve cognitive functions such as efficiency, but they also have motivational properties.
Wow. Girls, what do you think about implicit stereotypes? In my opinion, they happen when the beliefs that we don't recognize have influence in our behavior without knowing.
Interesting. The same that happened with the racial attitude implicit could be applied to the stereotypes, which mean that the stereotypes of which we don't know have conscience and can stimulate through different stimulates. One are actives, they influence in our thinking and decision.
Yes, even in our behavior to that person, which are referred to stereotypes.
Also, the process that Beinegia and Harding describe complete the priming one. This process consisted to show to the participants subliminal stimulates during a really short period that doesn't permit identification.
And one question. If the stimulates get active through this process, the time of answers will change depending on the time of stimulates or not.
Yes, yes, it is right.
Um, do you remember what they said about the functions and formulation of stereotypes or something like that?
Yes, they say that Hamilton stated that stereotypes result from the functioning of our cognitive system, and after them, simplify the complexity of our environment to facilitate our adaptation in it.
And apart from cognitive economics, are there another series of functions?
Of course, they are defense of the self through mechanisms and facilitation of social identity, group integration and adjustment of social norms.
And another important fact about this topic is the social categorization. we suggest that the prejudice is a consequence of our strong trend to divide the social world in us and they.
Well, yes. The people see other person as belonging to his own normally so-called in our group and in another group.
Well, on one hand, the people in the category we are seen in favorable terms. However, in the category they are perceived in a more negative way.
How amazing is our society? Every group wants to turn better than their rivals, and the prejudice arises from this shock of social perceptions.
I completely agree with you, but additionally, there are different theoretical orientations in the study of stereotypes.
Yeah, of course, you are right. There are three types. The first one is from a psychoanalytic approach, in which the stereotypes arise from the drives of the individual.
The second one is from a sociocultural approach in which stereotypes do not have their roots in the individual, but they arise from the social environment. And what was the third one?
Okay, wait. I'm going to
I
explain
think
you.
it was the sociocognitive approach, maybe?
Yeah, it's that one. It says that stereotypes are always formed by association through certain attributes towards certain groups.
Also, something that caught my attention was the problems that affect intergroup relations that are endogroupal favoritism, which is the tendency to favor the own group or also known as endogroup, the homogenization of the exogroup, which is tendency to see the more homogeneous outgroup, and which one is missing?
The last one is the fundamental attribution error, maybe? It sounds to me.
Exactly. About the problems that affect intergroup relations, they also said that Pettigrew explained the tendency to attribute undesirable behavior to the personality of members of the group.
On the contrary, the desirable behavior is attributed to the circumstances of the situation.
Okay, girls, I think that prejudice, which are the negative attitude generally towards to the members of diversity social groups that are based only on their own belong to that group, affect so much of our society. What do you know about it?
I think that there are several theories about the origin of the prejudice, like the one that suggests that the prejudices are learned and they are developing in the same way and through the basis mechanism that the rest of the attitudes.
The second theory suggests that the direct experiences with persons of other groups also give shape to our racial attitudes, as well as the preoccupation for acting in the way of prejudice and the restriction or limitations and interacting with persons of different groups.
And the third theory, what was about? Okay, no, I remember. It said that it's the support that the person generally divide the social world into categories,
Yeah.
us and them.
What do you mean with that?
Well, it means that the person sees the rest like persons of the same group or from another. This discrimination is due to the race, the religion, the sex.
Wow, you have described it perfectly. The ones who are of the group of the us, they are seen in a positive way. On the contrary, the ones who are part of the group of them are seen in a negative way.
Yes, the reasons why the prejudice persists is because the individuals that have it, they affirm their self-confidence and they feel superior. And they also persist because they save up the cognitive effort.
Well, the thing that most caught my attention about it is the role of the social learning. Do you know why?
No, why?
Okay, because the prejudice is learned and develops of the same way and across the same basis mechanisms.
Whoa, It also impressed me. In agreement with this perspective of the social learning, the children acquire attitudes expressed by his parents, teachers, friends, and mass media, as well as because they are rewarded directly for adopting these opinions.
The direct observation is important of the others and of the social procedure.
Do you remember what categories they mentioned?
No.
Categories or theories?
Sorry. Theories. I am very
Sleepy.
yeah.
Of course. They mention the theory of real conflict, which says that the prejudice is derived of the competence in these racial groups because of the beliefs and the opportunities based value, that they etiqueted the opposite like enemies, and that the result is a prejudice with a great emotional in all his expressions.
That theory was the one that also said that as it maintains the competitive, the individuals perceives the others in the way more and more negative, carrying in occasions to a direct or violent conflict.
Yes, that is.
Yeah.
Another theory is the theory of the social identity, which serves to press the self-esteem by means of identifying with specific social groups, and as a result, we have the prejudice due to each group see itself as superior and better than its enemy.
Okay, thanks for explaining it, girls. I was not paying attention at that moment. Now, to compensate you, I'm going to explain the ways to reduce the prejudice. One example is to encourage the parents and other persons to transmitting to the children tolerance instead of prejudice.
Yes, since the parents want the better thing for the children, it is necessary to demonstrate the consequences of the prejudice and in this way avoid the transmission. No?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Can you tell me more about it? It really interests me.
Of course, another useful technology consists of the recategorization to persuade the individuals in order that they modify the limits between us and they, so that the members of the group happen to form a part of our group by means of the cognitive interventions.
Exactly. Social influence plays a significant role in both the maintenance and reduction of prejudice.
We want to hold beliefs that we see as normative of our group. Our prejudices are often predicted by what beliefs we think other members of our own group.
Yes, providing individuals with evidence suggesting that members of the group hold less prejudice views that them can reduce prejudice.
Another ways are to break the prejudice, to learn not to hate. Also, emotional techniques for reducing prejudice are effective.
You're right. People with egalitarian standards can feel guilty when they violate those beliefs and personally behave in a prejudicial fashion.
To close with this topic, what do you think if we talk about discrimination?
It is a good idea.
Okay, first, what do you think that is discrimination?
I don't know if I am right, but I think that discrimination is the conduct of lack of equality in the treatment of people by virtue of their group or category membership.
Yeah, it can be positive, benefiting groups of people, or negative when obstacles appear that prevent certain people from being able to handle themselves under the same conditions as others.
Another fact is that because open discrimination is currently illegal in many countries, this behavior overtakes more forms. These forms include attitudes such as new racism, sexism, emblamentings, and reserve discrimination.
Now I remember it. This new variety of racism focuses on three components that are the denial of discrimination against minorities, the opposition to demands for equal treatment, and what is the last one?
If I remember well, I think that is the resentment of special favors for minority groups?
Yes, that one.
Yeah. So about discrimination, do you know what different types of people to face discrimination?
It was new for me when I saw the program, but it makes me think a lot.
The same happens to me. I can explain it to you. Strategic intolerance act according to their prejudice, and the strategic liberals don't have any prejudice, but they can discriminate if the situation gives them some benefits.
Another types are the convenient liberals that are out of prejudice and discrimination, and there are some other people who discriminates only in terms of race, gender, handicap, and others who have individual distinctions.
This kind of discrimination affects only the personal achievement, skills, or qualification between two persons.
Wow, we were really paying attention to the program.
Yes. So, okay, as a conclusion, I would like to say that when we see or meet some individuals, we tend to join him, her, to a sociological group, and a sociological group has his own particular characteristics, known as stereotypes, as we said before.
Also, people used to mix up these characteristics and turn them into prejudices, which are the way we treat those sociological groups even when we don't know them. This prejudice also can be positive or negative.
And girls, finally, regarding on those bad prejudice, we reach to discrimination, which is the action against those groups according or prejudice.
What do you think about aggression and juvenile violence in educational context? That is a topic that shocked me a lot. I love it.
Well, the violence in schools and the mass media has been reflecting how this problem is growing little by little in the youngest levels of society.
With this violence, the social agents have considered the need of implementing certain sources that will help the decrease of these kinds of antisocial conducts and situations.
Something very good that society is that they are developing some studies that will help to find the source of the factors that have an influence over the violent behaviors of the youngsters. The reason is that we need to understand this problem and try to prevent it in order to live in a more calm society.
Yeah, I think that society is acting very good in relation with that topic.
We should know that what is to be aggressive before start speaking about it.
Well, it is one of the biggest concerns to parents and professionals when talking about conduct alterations. And this is not only because its negative effects, but also because of its resistance to any sort of behavioral modification.
Yeah, McJack talked about the first classification of aggressiveness. The reactive aggressiveness, the one that characterizes the hero and appears after an external or environmental attack, and secondly, active aggressiveness, which is the one that characterizes the villain of the movies. It is innate and unavoidable.
We could say that aggressive behaviors are not social affective and they can have psychosocial or physical consequences either for us or for other people around us.
Well, in this way, Archer and Brower created three ways to classify aggressive behaviors. If there is an intention to hurt someone, creating real damages, and alter the emotional state.
We can say that in an educational context, an aggressive student is the one that causes difficulties because they alter the regular development of the teaching learning process.
Also, it is necessary to identify the types of symptoms that can be found, which are grouped into external or observable, internal or emotional symptoms.
Yeah. Then, once we identify the intention of the aggressive action, we can say that the inherent properties of the demonstration are diverse, as much as the subject who emits them.
Did you know that feedback identified two types of aggressions?
Yes, the angry hostile aggression in which the aggressor causes harm or pain to other people, and the second one, what is?
I think that it was the instrumental aggression, in which the damage received by the victim is intentional or in relation to the goal of the aggressor.
Also, the discipline is a general tendency which some children present, refusing to obey most of the orders they receive from their parents, teachers, or educators, or simply doing the opposite of what is asked.
Then we have the negativism, also called oppositional behavior, that constitutes an exaggerated way of resistance that happens when the child adopts a hostile, stubborn, and capricious attitude.
Explosivity is the active aggression manifested through destructive behaviors, blows, bites, or even kicks.
But the rebellion is a clear challenge to the authority and a lack of cooperation. This challenge to authority could be another sign of the bad and inadequate channeling of aggressiveness.
Yeah, and then in pseudosocial criminal conduct, behavior is presented in those individuals who maintain a good relationship with their peers.
First, wait, because I have a doubt.
What happens?
I don't know if identifying an aggressive person is hard.
Well, for this we need to have into account some theories.
Yeah, for example, there are medical ones.
I can't remember. They need to have into account minimal cerebral dysfunction, exogenous physical syndrome, and their first childhood allocated the cerebral psychosyndrome. Don't they eat?
Yeah, then there are biological theories. This theory shows that there are a series of processes in an organism that are directly influenced by the hormones.
Yeah, but there are also personality theories, which focuses on relating appearance and personality characters with their own behavior.
Oof.
Also, there is the psychoanalytic theory, which considers aggressiveness as an innate element that pushes people to behave with a certain level of violence.
Oof, there is a lot of um,
Theories?
yeah, that is. The last one is ethnological theories, which they try to apply the observations in animals to the human behaviors.
That is the one that says that aggressiveness is a natural impulse to defend our survival, and they also say that it comes from a natural selection, doesn't it?
Exactly. And here we have the aggression hydraulic model that says that for each candor there is a series of previous patterns of action.
Yes, but since aggressiveness is considered to be innate, there aren't any external provocations.
You are right, but it is possible to identify triggering stimuli that can orientate the inner energy. The patterns of action include gestures, movements, or negotiations.
And in narrative theories we can find the sociocultural influence.
Yeah, there, the phenomenon called the norm of reciprocity consists of excusing or accepting as valid and normative the use of aggression in defense of, on attack or aggression from others.
Well, we have to take into account that the social tolerance to certain levels of aggressiveness is reflected and fed through the media and especially television.
What will determine this relationship will be the summative effect of the television exposure of violent content.
Exactly. The advance of new technologies has also contributed to this, where these changes allow erroneously reinterpreting reality as a changing and capricious phenomenon.
And what about the social learning and social relationships?
Well, the theory of learning states that aggressiveness is a behavior that is learned by associations of stimuli and reinforcement at both individual and social levels.
Aggressive behavior has the peculiarity of auto-reinforced through its own consequences, fostering a rapid generalization to other situations.
And given the negative purpose of aggression, we must try to eliminate it through the techniques of behavior modification. And also clear example of manifestation of this theory can be found in the family context.
The learning of aggressions begins when the parents reward the rebellious cries of the child in order to calm down and not bother.
It has also been found that the level of aggression is higher in children whose parents physically punish them or use violence as a way to impose discipline and order in home than in those whose discipline is based on the author.
So, in these cases, the influence of family can be crucial.
Yeah, the family has been called the primary socialization substance because in it the child will receive his first social experiences. Through parental educational practice or disciplinary techniques have been proven to this.
The inductive or supportive.
Yeah, is
Ye-
defined
yes.
from understanding.
Yes, I have been lost. It coercive, shaped by physical coercion, verbal coercion, and deprivation, and the indifferent conceptualized by indifference, permissiveness, and privacy.
I know that the inductive disciplinary techniques are the most favorable to achieve a social, school, and family adjustment in the child.
Yeah, and among the methods most used by parents is verbal coercion, manifesting through the fights, voices, or insults to the child.
Along with this, the practice of negative love with scenes of dislike, isolation, and ridicule can incur serious psychological effects for children.
In addition, children who experience these educational strategies do not feel guilty when they about family, school, or social rules.
Okay. So, in short, the family influence on the development of the child is determined by two well differentiated patterns. In a preschool stage, parents who maintain strict controls without explanation of the elementary rules.
And on the contrary, if this educational pattern is prolonged, accompanied by a lack of affection, antisocial behaviors appear in the children.
Mm, it's true. The entry into the school is going to involve a series of very radical cognitive and social changes as people move from an structured environment to an articulated one with less flexible schedules and little freedom of action.
On the other hand, the school can demand a series of behaviors where the most influential demands are related to the discontextualized character of the school and the formal language used in it.
And in teacher-student interrelation, communication determines to a large extent the effectiveness of them. And the communication must contemplate all the fundamental elements that guarantee a more synchronized interaction.
Yeah, and for this, the educational process must have a series of communication and social skills strategies. Those focus on the way of communication, and those others focus on the content of the communication.
We can find also three types of different structures. The first one is the learning structure. Here, when a teacher chooses a learning structure, what is encouraging is the mobilization, the merge of what could be called different types of psychosocial relationships in the classroom.
The second one is the reward structure, which the most important factor is the structure of interpersonal reward.
And the third one, it was the authority structure. It refers to the control that the student exercise over their own activities as opposed to the control exercised by teachers or other adults.
Yeah, the immediate total effects of this directive behavior in the students consist in the diminution of the original solution and frequent interferences in class.
Now, okay, changing a bit the conversation. What about the violence from the psychosocial perspective?
Mm, I think that in educational context, analysis based on biological models does not seem to be the most appropriate.
Yeah, but on the contrary, within the normality that characterizes the school period, violent episodes must be analyzed with an integrating model that focuses more on the psychosocial and psychological and cultural factors.
Mm, well, yes, but the theory of causal attribution helps to assess the nature and process of causal attributions about aversive events. To ascribe responsibility, it has to be decided whether the aversive consequences were intentional or not. And the more aversive the consequences, the more willing it will be for revenge.
Finally, we can collect some of the variables that, although they are not the main determinant of the start and maintenance of an aggressive behavior, they may well predispose the climate for the outbreak of violent emotions.
Like the overcrowding one, the studies which relate the overcrowding with the aggressions are contradictory. The results seem to be different according to the existing situation.
Yes, only when overcrowded interfere in the things the person wants to do or when he or she perceives the situation as subjectively unpleasant, the predisposition to attack is evident.
Other one is with the hot weather, and Kemal formulated the thermal law of delinquency. It says that violent crimes are more frequent in periods of high heat. This law, this law
Yeah.
has been proven in different archival studies.
However, Baron and Bell discovered that the relationship between both variables is not linear, but curvilinear, so that only moderate the levels of environmental temperature work as unchanged, while extreme levels describe other types of reactions.
On the other hand, Rule and Ferguson indicate that the heat reactivates aggressive thoughts in the person that, if they coincide with other suitable environmental conditions, increase the probability of emitting aggressions.
And to sum up, the heat aggression relationship seems to be mediated by the type of social climate present in the situation.
Yeah, another one of these is the noise. It is not a direct effect on aggression, since its presence seems to increase the levels of aggressions of an individual only if he is already prepared to act aggressively.
I think that some studies in this regard indicate that the stress caused by noise does not depend as much on its intensity as on its predictability and controllability.
Wow! In addition, it has been proven that people endure and are able to adapt to noise.
Yes, but if this is continued, there is a cumulative effect that causes the reductions of tolerance to frustration and, consequently, the probable emissions of aggressiveness.
On the other hand, when the person not only has a certain predisposition to attack, but also has reason to do so, the noise provides the necessary energy to materialize this predisposition. Do you know that?
I didn't know it. But the last one is the group size. The effect of social mass media individuals usually manifest much more aggressive behaviors in a group than individuality.
Indeed, the social masses guarantee more irrational, impulsive, and less normative behavior. The explanation of this phenomenon comes from two opposing theories.
Yes, I think that they are the theory of the individualization or a state in which self-control, the need to maintain a personal image, the consent for the normative, and the last one that is the weekend in favor of the action of the group. No?
Mm, yeah.
And the other one is the theory of emergent norms of Turner and Killian. Do you know who they are?
I don't remember.
Well, they affirm that the group elaborates new forms that all analyze as theirs.
Wow, Interesting. I didn't know who they are, but thanks for the explanation.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
So, well, in conclusion, violent and aggressive behavior can be motivated by multiple and complex factors.
The factors are the main determinant of this type of behavior will be the influence of the most important socializing agents in the life of the individual, the family, and the school.
That will conform the behavior style of this one.
Yes, but on the other hand, the detonating factors could be that acting isolated or combined with propitiate the unfolding of concrete conducts of this naturalization in diverse situations.
In addition, the mentioned influence could take place on the basis of a genetic and organic predisposition that would condition the action of individuals. But
Okay.
girls, now I have to go home.
Okay. You did you feel a little bit ill, no?
Only a little bit, I'm really sick.
Okay.
Your voice is very strange today.
I know, I'm sorry, girls.
She seems like a robot.
Bye bye.
Bye,
Sorry.
girls.
Hope you have liked this new edition of Educalag. These three girls have explained really well some of the most interesting topics of the social psychology, that are the emotional intelligence, the social communication, the affiliation and interpersonal attraction, the stereotypes and discrimination, and the aggression and juvenile violence in educational context. The next week, they will talk about the last three topics. The end is coming. See you next week. Bye bye.
Everybody wanna steal my girl.